Welcome to Buy, Hold, Sell, brought to you by Livewire Markets. My name is Matthew Kidman, and today I'm joined by Emma Fisher from Airlie and Stuart Welch from Alphinity, and we are talking about companies outside the top 20 that have got big tailwinds at their back coming out of the coronavirus recession. Start with you, Stuart. Housing market in the US been a boomer. James Hardie, big beneficiary. Buy, hold or sell?
Look, I think it's a buy here. Low interest rates have stimulated so much activity. There's been an underbuild for a number of years, so it's likely that that continues, irrespective of mortgage rates potentially creeping up. And on top of that, there's some of the key competitors have had supply constraints, so they've been able to take share more than they ordinarily would have.
It's been a go-to, a market darling, Emma. Buy, hold or sell at these levels?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a buy. I think with James Hardie, there's a structural story and a cyclical story. The structural story is going very well. They're taking share in their core market of fibre cement. The cyclical story looks still attractive. They've obviously been big beneficiaries of people spending more money on their homes as they're stuck inside their homes. We think that's a bit of a structural shift that could continue. Meanwhile, attractive valuation, good balance sheet, good management team. You know, we think it looks good here.
Who would have thought retail would be so strong over the last 12 months? And as Jerry tells us, bring your trailer, bring your truck. Harvey Norman, buy, hold or sell?
Oh, look, I'm going to say sell, only because I think the standout in the space is JB Hi-Fi. You know, it's got the leading brand. When you think consumer electronics, you think JB Hi-Fi. Actually, when you look at them on EV/EBIT, they're pretty similar valuations. So I think if you want to own one in the space, that would be the one that I would own.
Harvey Norman, everyone thought maybe the best was behind them, but the months roll out and the powerful earnings continue. Buy, hold or sell, Stuart?
Oh, look, I'd be a sell too on that one. I think that they've in the past actually gone off and actually invested in some assets that were non-core. It's things like dairy farms and accommodation camps for mining communities, stuff like that. Would just prefer a business to stick to its knitting and stay close to the core, so I think we'd say sell on that.
Okay, so everyone's gone boating, camping, fishing, super retail, also in the retail area.
Yes.
Buy, hold or sell?
Oh, look, I think that one's a buy. The retail consumer is in a very strong position. It's unlikely that this sort of redirection of spend away from overseas travel to domestic, more regional driving trips is going to change in the immediate future. And whilst the market's anticipating a big drop off back to sort of pre-COVID style levels, we think that there's probably a bit more legs in that story, and there's some earnings upside coming.
I know you like retail, Emma, so maybe you can be a rebel and maybe tell us why super retail might be a buy, hold or sell.
I think it's a hold. I echo a lot of Stu's comments. I just sort of struggle with seeing what the next leg of upside for the stock is. I think with the retail sector as a whole, there are a lot of really interesting opportunities, but I think the categories that super retail are in, I think, you know, that when you look at them on a normalised level of earnings, that, you know, the stock just doesn't really have much of a valuation story here.
Okay, let's go west. Let's go iron ore, mineral resources, buy, hold or sell?
I'm going to say min as a buy here still. You know, there's a lot of focus on iron ore prices, which clearly look toppy, but for mineral resources, they've also got a volume production story. So they're increasing volume. So you roll forward 2 to 3 years, yes, we may have a lower iron ore price, but they're going to be producing more of it. They're also earning nothing from lithium today. And again, in 2 to 3 years, that could be a big chunk of earnings. So great balance sheet, great management team. It's 5 times EBITDA. You know, it's very, very cheap. I think it's a buy.
It's been the best performing mid-cap we've seen just about. Buy, hold or sell, sure?
Oh, look, I think this one's probably a hold. The Mineral Resources has both a mining contract services business, but they also take primary stakes in mines, and most of the earnings growth in recent times has been from the iron ore side. That's been the real story. And they're reasonably high cost mines, and they've been quite profitable in a very high iron ore price environment. And whilst we're constructive on the iron ore market, it does feel like expectations are reasonably lofty and have caught up to where we are today. And so it's hard to sort of see the upside case from our perspective on this one, and I think it would be a hold here.
Okay, we've also got a boom, bit of a tailwind for ag and for the resources sector. Fertiliser, Incitec Pivot, buy, hold or sell?
So yeah, Incitec Pivot's an interesting one. It's had a series of downgrades over the last 3 years, driven by a multitude of different things, mostly operational, manufacturing, production issues. At the moment, real strength in fertiliser prices is supporting earnings, and we can see some earnings upside. The key question for us is really the durability of those fertiliser prices, and there's too many moving pieces in there for us to get a great deal of conviction around that. So at this point, I'd probably say it's a hold.
Fertiliser prices have been on a tear. hasn't really reflected in the share price. Incitec Pivot, buy, hold or sell?
Yeah, I'm going to say hold as well. I think you're right. The backdrop is supportive from a fertiliser price perspective, and thank God they didn't sell that business as they were looking to do through their demerger. But at the end of the day, the quality is just not there in this business for us. It's got a pretty patchy track record of generating value through the cycle. As Stu said, pretty patchy track record coming out of, reliability in their manufacturing assets over the last few years. So for us, it's a hold.
So be careful when you're sprinkling that fertiliser because the winds are changing and changing fast. I really enjoyed that show, and if you liked it as much as I did, why don't you give it a like and subscribe to the Livewire Markets channel on YouTube.